The flight data recorder later revealed that the engine's internal temperature had begun climbing at a rate of 2 degrees per minute, slow enough to avoid triggering immediate alarms, but fast enough to catch the attention of the experienced flight crew. The pilots monitored their instruments with growing concern, noticing subtle discrepancies in the engine pressure ratio readings. After a few minutes, the vibration pattern changed. What started as a gentle tremor had evolved into a more pronounced shudder. The right engine's power output began fluctuating, causing minor but noticeable speed variations. In the passenger cabin, drinks rippled gently in their cups, and window shades rattled with increasing intensity. The cockpit warning system remained surprisingly quiet. Modern aircraft are equipped with sophisticated diagnostic systems designed to detect and alert crews to potential problems. Yet somehow this particular issue seemed to exist in a gray area, serious enough to be concerning, but not severe enough to trigger automated warnings. It was a kind of situation that highlighted the irreplaceable value of human experience and intuition. Flight attendants noticed it too. Their trained eyes picked up subtle signs that something was amiss. The normal hum of the aircraft had acquired an unusual undertone, a discordant note in the otherwise familiar symphony of flight sounds. They exchanged knowing glances, their years of experience telling them that this wasn't typical turbulence. Onboard computers began logging irregular data patterns. The right engine's fuel flow showed microscopic fluctuations, deviating from normal parameters by fractions of a percent. These deviations, while minor, painted a picture of growing mechanical stress. The engine's internal components were experiencing forces. The aircraft experienced a severe mechanical crisis when a protective cowling on the right engine began to peel away mid-flight at 36,000 feet. This critical failure exposed delicate engine components to harsh high-altitude conditions, causing increased vibrations and compromising the plane's aerodynamics. While standard procedure for engine anomalies involves descending to safer altitudes, the aircraft's position over the mountains made this approach risky. The crew had to carefully balance maintaining altitude for safety with the need to address the deteriorating engine performance. Though weather conditions were favorable, the growing mechanical issues overshadowed any relief. Passengers on the right side of the aircraft saw the partially detached cowling and the exposed engine, which shook with escalating intensity. The disrupted airflow created unpredictable vibrations throughout the airframe, challenging the crew's ability to maintain control. Their training and experience prepared them to anticipate complications, but this situation exceeded anything they had encountered. What began as subtle vibrations evolved into a catastrophic mechanical failure that would push the flight crew's skills and the aircraft's design to their limits. The aircraft experienced a critical engine failure when its cowling became partially detached, exposing delicate components to high-altitude conditions. The compromised engine began vibrating and producing erratic thrust levels, causing severe turbulence and forcing the crew to rely heavily on manual control as automated systems struggled to compensate. Faced with a constant barrage of warning signals and conflicting sensor data, the flight crew initiated emergency procedures while grappling with an aircraft that became increasingly difficult to control. They needed to quickly choose a suitable airport for an emergency landing, but limited options and unpredictable weather conditions in Alaska made the decision incredibly challenging. The aircraft's descent through varying air densities further strained the damaged engine, which continued to deteriorate rapidly. The flight crew had to balance precision and speed, knowing that every minute increased the risk of catastrophic failure. With Anchorage International Airport identified as the best option, the crew meticulously calculated their approach while fighting turbulent weather and compromised aerodynamics. As they neared Anchorage, emergency response teams prepared for the worst. The final approach was fraught with difficulties, fierce winds, icy conditions, and limited visibility. Despite these challenges, the crew successfully guided the damaged aircraft toward the runway, demonstrating exceptional skill and composure. The emergency landing attempt, although far from their intended destination, proved to be their only chance for survival. Their training, quick decision-making, and teamwork under intense pressure ultimately saved everyone on board, making this incident a case study that would reshape aviation safety standards. Through terminals clutching their paper cups like lifelines, at Gate 37, A Boeing 737 waited quietly. Like thousands of flights before it, this one seemed utterly ordinary. The aircraft gleamed in the morning sun, its fresh paint job making it look almost new despite having logged over 25,000 flight hours. The ground crew moved around it with practiced efficiency, performing their routine checks with the precision of a well-rehearsed dance. What made this flight different wasn't visible to the naked eye. Hidden beneath the surface, beyond the reach of standard pre-flight inspections, something was waiting to turn this routine journey into one of the most remarkable incidents in Alaska's aviation history. The weather that morning couldn't have been more perfect for flying. Clear skies stretched endlessly above, with just a few scattered clouds painting white brush strokes against a blue canvas. The forecast predicted smooth conditions all the way to the aircraft's destination. Sometimes, though, perfect conditions can be deceiving. As passengers filed aboard, none could have guessed that they were about to become part of a story that would change aviation safety protocols forever. They were everyday people, travelers tapping away on laptops, families heading on vacation. Each had their own reason for choosing this flight, unaware that their decision would lead them into an experience they would never forget. In the cockpit, the flight crew went through their standard procedures. The captain, a veteran with over 15,000 flight hours, and the first officer, equally experienced, worked in harmony. They reviewed weather reports, checked systems, and prepared for what should have been another routine flight from Alaska to New York. The maintenance log showed nothing unusual. The aircraft had received its scheduled checks, and everything appeared to be in perfect working order. But sometimes, even the most rigorous safety protocols can miss the smallest detail, a detail that under the right circumstances could cascade into something much more significant. As the engine spooled up, their familiar whine echoing across the tarmac, there was no indication that this flight would be different from the thousands that had departed Anchorage before it. The ground crew gave their final signals. The pushback was smooth, and the aircraft began its taxi toward the runway. The morning sun cast long shadows across the taxiway as the plane made its way to the departure point. Other aircraft moved around it in the carefully choreographed dance of airport traffic. Air traffic control cleared them for takeoff, their voice crackling through the radio with the same routine professionalism they showed for every departure. The takeoff roll began normally. The engines responded with their usual power as the aircraft lifted off from runway 4L, banking gently over the Alaska mountains. Nobody could predict what would unfold in the next 47 minutes. The plane climbed steadily through 3,000 feet, then 5,000, then 10,000, cutting through the morning air with practiced ease. As the aircraft leveled off at cruising altitude, something began to change. It started so subtly that most passengers didn't notice it at first, but in the complex systems of a modern airliner, even the smallest anomaly can be the first warning sign of something much more serious. Think about the last time you were on a plane. Did you notice every little vibration, every slight change in engine sound? Would you have recognized the difference between normal flight characteristics and the first hint of trouble? For the passengers and crew of this flight, the distinction was about to become frighteningly clear. So what exactly was that first sign of trouble, and why did it make this veteran flight crew's blood run cold? The first indication emerged 23 minutes into the flight. A subtle vibration, barely noticeable at first, began resonating through the aircraft's starboard side. Most passengers were settled into their routines by then, some dozing off, others immersed in books or tablets. But for those seated near the right wing, something felt different about this particular tremor. High above the Alaskan mountains, the vibration slowly intensified. It wasn't the usual turbulence that frequent flyers had grown accustomed to. This sensation had a distinct rhythm, a mechanical pulse that seemed to whisper through the airframe. In the cockpit, initial instrument readings showed minor flightuations in the right engine's performance metrics. Nothing